Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Quick note, I will be hosting a monthly market outlook for February this afternoon after the market closes. Please join me at 4 o'clock p.m. Central. 4 o'clock p.m. Central, so it's about 45 minutes after the close there. We'll get started in the PivotBoss EchoFin trading room. So please visit pivotboss.echofin.co. If you do not have a login, you can get one for free and jump into the PivotBoss community room, which is where we will host the event. So please join me later on this afternoon at 4 o'clock p.m. Central. If you cannot join me, I will have the recording made available at some time. Although it has broken a time or two, it should be available. All right, let's take a look here at the daily time frame of the ES. Right now we can see how strong this market has been, especially in overnight trading. In the previous session, price was really failing to hold above the Friday midpoint here, and was also failing to hold at the midpoint of the previous month's range, and that was suggestive of a bit of weakness here that could see this thing maybe drop back down, especially with how it closed here. However, it didn't really close super bullish or bearish. It closed right at the midpoint of the day and right on it. And then you can see here that in after hours trading here and overnight, this thing has gone straight through the previous session's high and has rallied back to the FOMC key level from last week, 32.86 half. That's going to be very important. So far, that level has been offered. Here, it was offered a bit down. It came and closed above it, then bam, it slammed down. Now it's slingshot back all the way to that level. We'll see what happens from here. Does it take it bid now? In which case, it would come back to these highs, and any pullback could be bid for a continuation. We'll see how it plays out, because if it continues to be rejected, then perhaps we swing right back down from where we came from here. Overall, this market remains bullish, but again, got to continue to see how it behaves right here at 3,300. 3,300 has been a very difficult level for this market to remain above. It got above it briefly, and then it got hard sold back below it. It's been defended ever since, and while this is very strong here, again, it has to be able to negotiate strength through that level in order for this thing to really see a continuation higher. So continue to watch 3,300 as this thing comes for an approach. Let's take a look here at the NQ. Very bullish day again in the NQ. This one, you can see how it barely closed above the pivot range for the new month. Higher value relationship, very narrow, and has taken everything bid and is right back on highs. This is pretty tremendous strength right here. And again, given how this thing has rotated a couple times, we could be looking at another big push through those highs. As always, I would always caution to watch previous month's high here at 9,300, because if price gets through it and tries to hold and fails, that would suggest a return right from where it came from, and perhaps even all the way across the range to the previous lows. So again, always got to be cautious of a prior high when you come into it, because if there's failure, that could be significant. But right now, showing quite a bit of strength here. And the last time we had kind of a rotation like this and then rotated over a couple of passes here was right even back here, where it kind of came back in here and then took off again. So very similar type of price action with even more increased volatility this time around. So we'll see how price responds. Again, 9,300 is going to be a very important test. All right, let's take a look here at crude oil. Crude oil is up 2.29% right now. This one has turned around again. The previous session looked like it wanted to get going to the upside, but what we talked about was it needed to close back above this zone here. And while it did trade briefly above there, showing a very nice potential rejection, it just couldn't hang on by the end of the day and sold off quite a bit, closing on lows. We've had a sharp turnaround since then, and that turnaround has led price right back to the previous week's close, previous month's close, and that's right where today's highs are, right there at that blue dot. That's going to be very important. Again, bears may want to come in and defend that and see if this thing gets going to the downside. I have mentioned before how important this area of support is. It has been a zone that has not given up in over a year, really. So this area right here, as as early as 51.20, as deep as 50.5, right? That zone right there has been very reliable. It closed below that zone for the first time yesterday here and is now already back above it. If this does find some sort of strong pivot low here, there could be a midpoint bounce back. That could be very powerful ahead back toward 57. So again, keeping an eye on this zone. If there's a failure to get back above 51s or stay above 51s or 52s here, perhaps this could flush even lower. So we've got to continue to watch to see how this thing responds, because as of right now, there's not a clear or clean sharp rejection, but price is attempting to push back above the previous month's close. All right, let's take a look lastly at gold futures. This one's down about 0.9% and is again pulling back within the wave higher. You can notice here that this thing has been trending up, and every time it comes into the Pima trigger zone, it bounces out, including back here. We're right into it right now, and we're testing the pivot range here, right at the midpoint. And that's very important right now, because if there's a violation here, that would suggest a continuation back to the previous month's low. And that's why the midpoints are very important in an uptrending market. If it fails here, it tends to rotate back to this line. Not always, but it tends to. This market has been very, very bullish. So at the very least, it could at least come back to retest this low here, which would fall short of that line. So somewhere in here could be a good landing point. However, if it can hold this zone, this could be an ideal area to watch for rejection. Maybe it does drop a bit but then rejects. That could be an indication that we're headed right back up, right? Because we have higher value relationship. If you pull back early in the month, it tends to be a zone where you can buy the dip for a continuation higher. So we're right at the zone here. If you're bullish gold, this is an ideal area to watch for rejection. If you're bearish, you want to watch for a big close through that zone, which would suggest more downside. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Please join me later on this afternoon for the monthly market outlook at 4 o'clock p.m. Central. All right, see you soon, and see you in the trading room. Take care.